Welcome to Conversations with Laurel, everyone. I am your host, Laurel McHargue, and I have a really special guest with me today, Chris Floyd. Welcome to Conversations with Laurel.
Hey, good morning, Laurel, and thank you so much for the invitation to join you for the conversation.
Oh, you are absolutely welcome. I hear, and the reason we're having this conversation is that I hear you've made an important life decision recently. Would you would you like to share that with everybody?
Sure. So a year ago, I decided to launch a campaign to run for the Colorado State Legislature. The current representative for House District 13 is the Speaker of the House, Julie McCluskey, and she's term limited, and she encouraged me to run to succeed her. So I took that leap of faith, or as some folks have joked with me, jumped off that cliff
Yeah.
to try to bring, a voice to rural and mountain Colorado at the state.
And so you're doing it.
Yes,
I'm pretty sure you are not one to badmouth your competition. Um, so tell listeners right now why you are most qualified to represent House District 13, which, by the way, are registered voters in Chaffee County, Lake County, Grand County, Jackson County, County, and Summit County. Six counties.
that's right.
This is
Yes,
a big district.
it's
Why?
ginormous.
It's ginormous. I just
Yes.
so why you? Why are you more qualified than anyone who might want to run against you?
Well, I think it's because I have quite a broad background and experience, not just in terms of my professional activities as a lawyer, but also my lived experience. And so I've been up in Leadville Lake County for almost 13 years now. And over that time, I've focused mostly on community service oriented work. Originally as a lawyer giving legal advice and counsel to small businesses and nonprofits. Then in 2020, I was appointed the municipal judge for the city of Leadville, where I succeeded someone who had been on the bench for 41 years and was known as a real law and order, throw the book at people, literally kind of guy. And, when I took the bench, I realized that the issues that brought a lot of the folks before me in court had to do with their underlying circumstances, the struggles with poverty and substance abuse and that type of thing. So I took a more restorative justice approach to it. And then while I was serving on the bench, I was also appointed to be the county attorney for Lake County government. And during that time, realizing the impact that the legislation has on our communities, especially right now, where 11 of the largest counties in Colorado pretty much make the rules for everyone. And we see a lot of one size fits all legislation coming out of, Denver and the Front Range that just doesn't fit our way of life. And we've got far too many unfunded mandates and presumptions, and what I feel is somewhat of a paternalistic approach to legislating on behalf of our mountain and rural communities by folks who really don't know what it is to live in these communities and the challenges that we face. And so I think between that and then my actual background, I didn't live a privileged life. I managed to grow up one of five daughters of a single mom and spent the first 6 years of my life in foster care. So I know firsthand the experience that families, working families and single moms and seniors and such in our communities have, especially now when the cost of living is so outrageously high, just to, just to survive, let alone have the opportunity to thrive. And so I feel like my background experience brings that type of informed approach that'll allow me to hit the ground running if I'm elected in order to make sure that we preserve what progress Colorado has made over the last decade or so, while also focusing on the specific issues that mean so much to our rural and mountain communities.
Yes, and I am a member of the rural and mountain communities. I met you when we lived in Leadville. We live in Salida now, so again, we are not Front Range. And when I go to the Front Range, it is a whole different world. I know that it's
Yeah.
a whole different world. And so you mentioned your background. I was going to say some people might look at you and hear how articulate you are and assume you were born with a silver spoon, but you have seen hardships. You have.
Absolutely. And one of the things I'll say about, growing up in a fractured childhood, if you will, is not situational. It's not something that you grow out of. It pretty much it weaves together part of the fabric of the person you are. And for me, what that has meant is really it helped inform a true dedication to serving my community and folks in marginalized situations, and especially kids, and knowing how important education is in those circumstances.
Education's important, huh? Yeah, I taught in the public school system in Leadville for a few years. I've seen you in action in Leadville. I've seen you be more than generous with your time as a mentor for small businesses, as an advocate for, as you mentioned, the restorative justice, which as a teacher with some um, troubled students, the restorative justice system was amazing, right? You
Yes.
don't lock kids up who need help. And you have done that. You have offered your services pro bono. You've done so much. So being an attorney, a judge, a community activist, that hasn't kept you busy enough. You have to run for office now.
Well, what's funny about that is actually, a year ago, January, so not this January, but a year ago, January, I was having a conversation with Julie McCluskey, and I have been very supportive of her, campaigns as well as her predecessors' campaigns. And I was just joking, saying, hey, you're on your last term. Who am I going to be supporting next? And she smiled and tilted her head, as anybody who knows Julie has a tendency to do, and said, "I hope it'll be you." And I had never imagined running for state office. I'm a worker bee. I'm the one that likes to be a part of finding solutions and rolling up my sleeves and getting to work to make sure that good things happen. And before that, my plan had been essentially just to continue in doing community service pro bono work, because especially in our rural mountain communities, our nonprofits are struggling. There have been so many budget cuts, the funding is just not there for them. So they need people like us who are willing to say, hey, I have this skill set that I'm willing to bring to help support you to make sure that you remain viable because you're an essential part of our community. And so that was my plan. And so she kind of teased with me that I would pretty much be doing the same thing as a state legislator, because they don't get paid a whole lot of money to do that work. But it would allow me to expand my voice. And so I spent 3 months last year doing due diligence, talking to people in the community, see if I was in fact a viable candidate. Because I don't just do things off the cuff. I do my homework, and I make sure that I know what I'm getting into. And it just convinced me over those 3 months that my background and experience was what we need for this type of a community, to where we have a strong advocate who has the real life experience to be able to talk to folks at the Capitol to make sure that they understand we're not like the Front Range. We have special challenges and issues that face us. And, a good example of that is we're in the assembly and caucus process right now. And so, as you mentioned, House District 13 is 6 different counties. Those 6 counties are actually larger than 5 of the states in this country. It takes 4 hours to drive from one end to the other. And so, and in terms of the allocation of the delegates in order to get on the ballot and get elected and such, our district has 26. If you were in Denver, there would be 240. That
Eh,
is such an example of the disparity in terms of the strength and the voice that we have. And so we need someone who's a trained advocate like I am, who has no problem speaking truth to power, and to make sure that we're heard and not left behind.
yeah, describe the caucus uh, procedure for those of us who have never been to one, because I actually thought that I could attend one here in Chaffee County, but I am registered independent.
Yep.
So
Yep. And
I,
that's yeah, that's been a challenging conversation with a lot of people over the last month, because Colorado, like a lot of different communities and states, are trending more towards the unaffiliated. The political parties aren't necessarily the most engaging for especially our younger voters and that type of thing. And in Colorado, the way it works to get a candidate on the ballot is it's pretty much still left up to those two established parties, the Democrats and the Republicans. And caucuses when a caucus is a gathering of like-minded people. So it's when those political parties get together and they elect delegates to go to an assembly. And at that assembly, it's those delegates. It's kind of like the electoral, college, those handful of people, whoever it might be, who decide who's going to be voted on to go on the ballot. And then that decision is for everybody. Now, as an unaffiliated voter, you will have the opportunity, if there's a primary, to vote in the primary,
Right.
but you have no voice in who you're going to be voting for. So I'm a huge advocate for bringing and modernizing this whole system. I think it's very antiquated. I think, especially in a state like Colorado, where pretty much half of the voters are unaffiliated at this time, it is not a fair way to choose your candidates and stuff anymore. I really do. I'll advocate for opening up to where unaffiliated voters, if nothing else, just like with the primary, you'll get a ballot for both parties, and you can at the primary you could vote for whoever you want. You only get to choose one of the ballots, but you can vote for whoever you want. I don't see why we can't carry that into the caucus and assembly process too. So I'm an advocate for modernizing our election process to make it more relevant and inclusive, because
Yeah.
the other thing too is we find that the unaffiliated voters, as I said earlier, are often younger, and they often tend to be some of our, yeah, I still consider you young, just like I still feel young. And to make sure that they continue to have a voice in this process, because so many feel so disenfranchised right now
Yeah.
anyway,
Yeah.
that we're just perpetuating that perspective and not giving them a vehicle for being more engaged.
Yeah. So education, both to the electorate and for our students, is important, right?
Absolutely.
Um, and housing affordability. All right. So, and again, when I taught in Colorado Springs, I had students in my seventh grade classroom who had no homes. They were living in shelters around the streets. How can you as a representative impact housing affordability? I mean, that's huge.
Well, it absolutely is. I mean, even just, there's so many communities have studied this issue. And even in Leadville Lake County, we did a housing needs assessment a few years ago, and it showed that we were like over 800 units short of what we needed to be to house all of our people. And think
Wow.
about that in a community like Lake County, where the overall population is like 7,800 people. To be 800 units short is huge. And what we're finding is that, as you mentioned, we've got our teachers, our healthcare workers, our first responders living in RVs and vans and stuff. And trust me, you do not want to be living in an RV or van in the winter in Colorado. It just
Yeah.
doesn't, it's not a healthy experience. And then think about that in terms of the ones who have families. So, as county attorney, I was fortunate to be involved in bringing to life our first affordable housing project. And it took us 3 years, though, to get the shovels in the ground to bring that to life. And it's because at the state level, there are too many restrictions and requirements that just aren't flexible enough to meet the challenges we have in the rural and mountain communities. It's so much more difficult to build here than it is on the Front Range. And so I think as a legislator, we need to expand options for one. We need to expand opportunities for landowners, nonprofits, local governments to be able to work together to bring forth more affordable housing. And part of the issue we struggle with there too is there's still somewhat of this stigma, this misunderstanding as to what affordable housing is. A lot of folks think of affordable housing as subsidized Section 8 tenements, the projects, all the stuff that perhaps some of them grew up with in the bigger cities. That's not what we're talking about now. We're talking about, inclusive zoning, to where it's not you build a project off in one isolated part of your community for to house people who are unhoused at this point in time. It is, mixed in with the community so there we retain our community culture and have those opportunities for everybody to be neighbors, regardless of where they fall on the socioeconomic strata there. So, I will absolutely advocate for more options, for more flexibility in our rural and mountain communities to be able to implement housing options. There's been some work at the legislature on that this year, and I hope to continue that work starting next year.
Yeah, there's an organization called Full Circle
Yes.
in Leadville, and when we lived in Leadville, we were mentors for a couple of the kids there, and they lived in a very lovely house that was, affordable housing
Yep.
unit
Right.
in a lovely neighborhood, and
Right.
so it can be done, right?
Yes,
It can be done.
it absolutely can.
Yeah. How are you feeling about healthcare? As someone
Oh.
who's as young as I am, with no problems at all.
Oh my. Well, healthcare is another issue I hear about all the time. In our communities, a lot of times our families and our seniors have to travel over mountain passes during the winter, at least an hour away, just to get to see a doctor for their care. And so I think we really need to focus more investment on our rural healthcare. I want to make sure that our rural hospitals remain sustainable. If you lived in Leadville, you know the challenges that our St. Vincent health system has encountered, to the point where at one point in time we thought for sure it was going to close. And had it closed, there would not have been another hospital within at least 45 minutes to an hour for the folks that live in this community. If you live in Bailey, which is in Park County right now, you have to travel at least an hour one direction or another just to find a doctor.
Oh boy.
They have no healthcare services in Bailey. And so that to me is something I want to make sure that I advocate for sustainable funding and staffing for our rural hospitals, health centers, school-based health centers, because those school-based health centers a lot of times are the only access that those kiddos and their families have to any type of health care. So I want to make sure that is sustainable. Also want us to invest more in our mental health services.
Mm,
Mental and behavioral health is something that we are so severely lacking in,
yeah,
especially
yeah,
in our rural communities. And also telehealth. It's to the point now, especially in the far reaches of some of these communities, to be able to give everyone some access to healthcare, even if it's not, live and in person, to where they could at least have a conversation like we're having now with
yeah,
a healthcare provider to have some aspect of preventative care. Because that's, I know people understand that without any type of access to preventative care, wellness care, things get worse.
yeah,
And in rural, communities, and especially with folks that are on the lower income range, that lack of preventative maintenance, as I call it, for our physical beings and our mental beings,
mm,
often results in much more severe consequences and much more costly needs for care than if they had access on a regular basis to healthcare resources.
yeah. So it comes down to money, right? In many cases.
Unfortunately, yes. It sounds cliche, but the bottom line is always money. But the other thing I'm really passionate about is to make sure that we work more towards public-private nonprofit partnerships. A lot of it is we have to incentivize our private and nonprofit partners to engage in helping us create some of these solutions, because government can't do it all, whether it's the state or local
Yeah.
level. We just can't do it all. We don't have the resources. I joke all the time that, I love all of our pine trees out here and how I wish those pine cones were worth something, because we don't have that money tree to go out and shake to create new revenue streams like they do in the Front Range. Again, it goes back to making sure that we have equity in rural and mountainous Colorado in terms of the resources and the opportunities that are available to the folks on the Front Range. And so we have to find more ways to generate revenue. And part of that is, how do we incentivize those public, and nonprofit and private partnerships to get some of these solutions funded and in place. And so that's something I'm really passionate about working on, is to make sure, because the other thing too is when you don't work together in partnerships, a lot of times you see silos and folks that end up, creating their own turfs, if you will, to where then you have duplications of services because then people are competing. We see it, in our community here, small communities with a lot of nonprofits. We have a lot of nonprofits in Lake
Yeah.
County.
Mhm.
We fortunately now have a leadership roundtable where they're talking to each other. So we're not
Yeah. Yeah.
duplicating services because we simply can't afford to do it anymore. The resources and the funding is not there. So we have to work together.
Yeah, again, educating the community. I met a gal. I met a gal at the dog park yesterday. I take our grand dog to the dog park every once in a while, and she was talking about, she and some of her friends wanted to start a writing group, and I said, a writing group? Well, I happen to be in
There you
one,
go. Right.
Central Colorado Writers, and she lit up and she's like, oh, I didn't know. So
Yes.
again, educating people to what's available, and you as one amazing woman can't fix it, can't do it all.
No.
You've done it all already in Lake County, which is why you need to now go up to the state and be able to do more. um but yeah, well, just getting the word out,
Yes.
and getting the word out in different languages, because we have a high Hispanic community
Yes.
in our areas, and we want to be inclusive, right? Liberty,
Absolutely.
liberty and justice for all.
Well, and it's a government by, for, and of the people. And so it shouldn't be just a government that's telling people how it's going to impact them. And as you pointed out, we have got to find a way for more engagement for our Latin community. Because especially in communities up here, Lake County is, in the school district especially, I think it's probably 70% of the kids and such. And we have to do it in a way that makes them feel that they belong, that we value them, that we want them to be engaged in the process. And on some levels, we're really struggling with that. So, yeah,
Especially now. I mean, especially now
yes,
with
yes,
what's going on with yeah, with that community.
right.
Uh, so Chris Floyd, amazing, nice woman. I think you're nice. I think
I
you're a
am
nice
nice.
person. So I understand that politics can get ugly.
Oh, yeah.
Are you prepared for that?
Yes, I am in many ways. And so, being an attorney for decades, even people who like lawyers don't like having to use lawyers. It's one of those things where it's always, it's a necessity sometimes to have a lawyer in your life or engaged with in some way. But also being a lawyer, and especially being the county attorney, I often joke that, we're lightning rods for hate and discontent,
Yeah, yeah.
and sometimes we're a repository of that. So over my career as a lawyer, I've developed really thick skin, but I also came into the profession with really thick skin. I was a scrappy kid, and that's coming from, years in foster care. And even after our mom worked really hard to get us back together, we bounced around. She was underemployed her whole life. So we bounced around from place to place to place, and new schools, and having to meet new people all the time and stuff, to where, you know, I'm very resilient. And I think that's what emboldened me to be able to even come out of situation. I'm a first generation college graduate, out of my family. And to be able to have achieved my educational goals as well as, my professional goals is something that's not unfortunately common for kids coming out of foster care and fractured childhood like that. So, no, I have the thick skin. The other thing too is, you know, unfortunately in these days there are a lot of people who spew a lot of hate,
Yeah.
and I believe in being the best person I can be. So I don't feed into that. You won't hear me saying derogatory things about, any opponents or anything like that. Just because they're doing their thing, I'm doing mine. I believe I'm the best person for this role because of what I bring to the table. And I will continue to work just as hard as I have my whole life to ensure that I'm the best representative that I can be for the people of this district and this state. And so, yeah, I'm ready for it. Bring the challenge. I've endured a lot of stuff in my life, and this is not something that's going to beat me.
Yeah. Chris, is your mom still with us?
No,
No.
unfortunately, she passed away in 2006 due to health-related issues. And so, the last conversation we had, despite what we endured growing up and stuff like that, I thanked her for raising me to be a good person. And to
Ah,
honor her, I promised her that every day I would strive to be the best person I could be. Now, there's some nights when I feel like I've not necessarily succeeded at that promise, but every day I do the best that I can do. And I think that's all we can ask of people. And I'm authentic. What you see here is what you get. This is me. I have lived a life, I hope, driven by integrity and honesty and that pure desire to serve. I'm here to serve this community. I'm a citizen lawyer. That's why I went to law school, is to support people and to make sure that folks that grew up like I did and other working families and seniors and all who are struggling continue to have all the opportunities that I believe this country and this state were founded for. And so
yeah.
that's something else. I won't rail right now on what needs to change at the federal level, but I want to be a part of the solution at the state level to make us more resilient as a state in light of these type of situations at the federal level, to where we're not
Yeah.
so traumatized, if you will,
Yeah.
by what comes out of Washington.
Yeah. Yeah. Your mom would be so, so proud. I think
Thank
you
you. I hope
probably
so.
know that. How can people help you? And
Well,
yeah, yeah.
yeah, I was going to say, running for office is interesting, and one of the worst parts about it, I will say, is that it's not cheap to do.
Yeah.
A lot of media and getting out, and like I said, it's a very large district. So you know, taking for example, I was in Granby, Fraser area last night. Spent 4 hours driving back and forth for a 2 hour meeting, that type of thing. So it's very time consuming and such. So just having people engage with the campaign would be phenomenal, just to have more people get to know me, because at the end of the day, I need them to vote for me. I need them to vote
Yeah.
for me both at the party level as well as at the state level, in order to be able to bring what I'm offering to the General Assembly in Denver. And so people can learn more about me through the website. It's got a lot more information
The
about my
website, the
priorities.
website is,
Is Chris Floyd for Colorado.com. So it's
and I'll have,
Chris Floyd for CO.com.
and the four is a number four, and I will have the link below. Absolutely.
Well, thank you. Thank you
And
so
th-
much.
and there's a
Yeah.
way that we can contribute money, right? I mean, gas is so cheap now.
Oh,
Why
I
would you
know.
need money?
Well, and what's funny too is that so I'm doing this full time.
Yeah.
Last April, I stepped down as the municipal judge in order to launch this campaign, because as a judge, it's number one, you should not be politicized if you're a judge, and people need to understand that,
Yeah.
especially as we're
Right.
watching our judges in DC not follow their oath essentially. And then December 31st, I stepped down as the county attorney, because I believe this race is so important that we need to have the right person there. And so this is my full-time job right now, is running for this seat to represent the people in House District 13. So yes, if on the website there's a link that you can click to donate to the campaign, I'd be grateful for any support. And I'll be honest with you, a lot of the folks that have supported my campaign financially, it's the everyday folks that I see and know in these communities who are, I know sometimes it's a stretch for them to contribute to campaigns, but I think it's because they believe in the work that I'm trying to do. And so I am grateful for any level of support. There's also an opportunity where you can engage to volunteer with the campaign. We'll be knocking some doors and making some calls and that type of thing. So it's not all just about the money. It's mostly just about engaging with the campaign and supporting the campaign.
And I would imagine any amount of financial contributions would be welcome. Because again,
Absolutely.
from a tank of gas to a hotel that you might have to stay in because you're, so far away to whatever ads cost. Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, people. I think people often wonder, well, where does the money go? If are they just putting it in their pocket?
Oh
So.
gosh, no. No. I don't, and that's one thing too, is that I made a pledge when I launched this campaign too, that none of the funds that I raise will go to supporting me personally. So all of my personal expenses in doing this campaign are I'm absorbing those. I'm not going to use any of the hard-earned money that my supporters donate to this campaign to support me personally.
Well, Chris Floyd, as an Army veteran, deeply troubled by the dangerous, illegal, unethical, and cruel actions that I'm seeing our current, political administration participate in. I gladly endorse you to
Thank
represent House District 13 and me in Colorado. And I will encourage every registered voter to vote for you. Voters in Chaffee, Lake, Grand, Jackson Park, and Summit counties.
thank you.
Vote for Chris Floyd. I mean, you have sold me. I want everybody to learn more and help out. Click the link below and help out however you can.
Thank
Um,
you.
but before we leave, well, first of all, is there anything else you would like to say on your behalf?
Oh, no,
Anything else
just
you want people to know about you?
well, and the one thing I'll say, I'm so grateful for this opportunity. And I've told a number of folks, even if at the end of the day I don't end up being elected, just having the opportunity for this year, which will be a year and a half by the time the election rolls around, to be an advocate for our communities has been so amazing for me. So, it has been such a privilege, and I hope to continue that privilege in terms of representing, but being able to get out and meet people and just hear where they are and what their challenges and issues are. I'm thankful for that opportunity. And so, I'm doing this in hopes of representing, but also I'm getting so much more out of it in terms of what I get back from the people I talk to and knowing what their challenges are and being able to continue my life as an advocate to advocate for them and to find solutions.
Awesome. Before I let you go, I have a lightning round. Ready?
Uh-oh. Okay.
Coffee or tea?
Tea. You don't want to see me on high test coffee.
Vanilla, chocolate, or strawberry?
All, all three.
With chocolate syrup on it
Of
and
course.
nuts maybe. What's your favorite color?
Blue.
Blue. Mine's green. What's your favorite comfort food?
Oh my. I love breakfast foods. My
Yeah.
comfort foods are like, a traditional breakfast pancakes, that kind of stuff.
All right. And what makes you laugh?
Oh, often my rescue dog, who is just insanely silly and anything animal related, they make me laugh all the time. Animals make me laugh.
Yes, and I think we have to find something to laugh at every day, don't we?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that is the joy in life is even in the darkest times, you have to find something that brings you joy. And I make a point of doing that every day, even if it's just, you know, laughing at my dog who's talking to me in his language and singing the song of his people because I have not spent enough time with him that day.
Singing the song of his people. I love that. Chris Floyd, thank you for being awesome. Keep being awesome. And may the electorate be with you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much for this opportunity. I appreciate the invitation. And thanks to all your listeners for taking the time to listen to our conversation too.
Like and subscribe. Give us a thumbs up. Subscribe to my channel and vote for Chris Floyd.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Chris. Bye.